So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Abhishek. I'm the co-founder of Extra Edge. And along with me, we have our growth inbound marketing specialist, Niti. And we welcome all of you to this particular webinar. And thank you for tremendous response to this webinar. Uh, Email is a very simple concept. We all are recipients and senders of emails, but today we will try to do something very interesting to talk to you what we have learned by sending crores of emails and via our product, and what we have learned as marketers, uh, especially in the admission and the education space. Some housekeeping before we start. So all of you are muted, and but we want you to have active participation. So use the Q&A icon that you could see below to ask as many questions. Don't worry about the nature of question. It could be as simple to as complex. We will try to answer them. We want to keep it interactive. So Q&A is at the bottom. You could ask that. It would also be great that we have some of the engagement tools during the webinar using polls, as we want to have a voice of our audiences into the webinar to make it more engaging. So please participate on the polls, because that gives a very rich context of how we should progress the webinar. We will do that. And and with that, I think Niti, we can get started.
Yep. So Abhishek, why don't you introduce yourself? I think you already introduced yourself. Why don't you introduce what does Extra Edge do?
Yeah, so for those in the audience, and Extra Edge is a dedicated admission and marketing software built for the education industry. And we have been working for the past 4.5 years, powering more than 250 odd brands across the globe now. And one of the key things that our product does is marketing automation for admissions for the education admission and outreach teams. So, and I have been privy to seeing a lot of customers optimize their campaigns and seen all good, bad, worse across the marketing channels. So today on this webinar, I represent a growth marketer on the behalf of Extra Edge. So that's my identity for this webinar, Niti. Over to you.
Awesome. So I'll just give a brief introduction, as since we have already introduced ourselves. Hi guys, my name is Niti, as the presentation suggests. I'm work as an inbound marketing specialist in Extra Edge. So in a gist, I basically help out on all the branding initiatives and deal with anything and everything to do with content.
Yeah, and that is going to play a very interesting role, Niti, in our email today, right?
Yes.
So now let's quickly dive in.
Actually, before we set the agenda, I think I'll run a quick poll basically to understand what current tools that people are using for email marketing.
Let's do that.
Yes. I've just launched a poll. I would highly recommend everybody who's attending this webinar to give their views.
Okay. Right. So Niti, as people are kind of answering the poll, and I would highly encourage all the people in the audience to keep answering these questions, because that will help us to encourage us to see how the pulse of the audience is, and and take it forward. So I think let's proceed, Niti, while people are answering the poll.
Yes. Well, I'll go ahead and set up the agenda. So what's this webinar about? This webinar is kind of divided into 3 sections, you could say. The initial first half is basically going to talk about typical challenges that people face when it comes to email marketing, the general assumptions that people have when it comes to email marketing. And the other half is going to talk about solutioning, purely from the point of view of what admission teams can do best to ensure that their email marketing campaigns work. And of course, final stage is going to be about Q&A. So I'll just end the poll now, and we can move on to the next section. So before we get into it, Abhishek, I just wanted to get some facts, probably showcase some facts to people. So did you know there are a lot of marketing tools that we use, such as WhatsApp, SMS, and email. And from the data that I've seen outside, WhatsApp has the highest open rates of 99%, and SMS has the open rate of 82%, whereas email has just 56%. These are the facts that we have seen online. So does this mean that email marketing is dead? Do we need to close shop basically?
Actually, Unity, what happens is that, the simple things are often underrated, right? Email has been in existence for so many years, and it's organic. The cost of acquisition is very low, but surprisingly, what I have seen in my last 5 years and probably in my career of around 11 years, that most people do email wrong, right? And they do not understand the power that email has. And it's the problem is a one size fits all approach, and that's where it gets wrong. However cliche it sounds, people miss personalization a lot. But the important bit here is that no, it's not dead. Just people are not doing it right. And now a lot of marketers are realizing that what are the levers that they could pull in order to make sure that it's as powerful as a WhatsApp and maybe a text message, because these are more consumer oriented. Email is more professional in that context, right? But I would say that the answer is, from an education marketing perspective, the answer is an overwhelming no. It's not at all.
Wonderful. So then there's certain specific, like, typical myths that people have about email marketing. Then clearly email marketing is not dead yet. So what are the typical myths that you generally hear about when it comes to email marketing?
Yeah. So what happens, Niti, is that when we are doing something for a long period of time, and we have a habit of doing it, and what we do, we believe is right, and we do not change it, right? Then we start to believe it does not work. And any new glittering thing that comes new, and it gives us the ROI, then our default flag is that no, this is working for us, so this is the latest trend, and probably we should not do the other thing. But as you have learned in marketing, so have I, that you need to pull all the levers together at the same point in time. So yes, all these three things are true, by the way, right? Social media is important, but it's not replacing email. So that's not the case. Millennials do not check their email. Yes, I mean, if they need to check what their friends are doing, they will not do that. But when they are receiving an application from a university, of course they will check the email, or our parents will check their email on their behalf of them, right? And I think it's like doing it right becomes more important, and email is easy, low cost, and it needs to be personalized, and it needs to be thought from a holistic point of view. So I think these are definitely some myths that need to be busted. And I think the interesting part is the next what will flow, that what potentially we could think about in the reality. And the reality is, as you really know, that 92% of the preferred internet users, they prefer email from an official engagement perspective. It's not like they're receiving a movie ticket engagement from their friend. Even that comes as an email to you, right? So email is not either an or, email is and with this, right? And also the ROI, as we are talking about it so more than often, if done right, email works beautifully like a charm. And the brands have proved over a period of time that if you send consistent, personalized, intent-based email, right, people await that email that comes from you. So a lot of bloggers and a lot of people who write regular content, we have been a recipient. We want to receive email from them on a regular basis, right? Because the quality and the nature of the content is so rich for that audience. So yes, this is the reality. And I think but the important point here still is, Niti, that why do people get it wrong still, or what's the seminal biggest problem that education marketers face, right? So I think probably we should also talk about it. So, and over to you on that.
So why does email marketing not work? Why isn't it working for me? I think the biggest reason is because your emails are landing in spam. So as you can see, in general, email marketing, in general, 20% the emails definitely land. They always land in somebody's spam box. So it's like, it's a given. So like, it's not like ऐसा नहीं है कि नहीं होगा, आपका spam में जाएगा ही नहीं जाएगा. It sure there will be some percentage of your emails definitely going into spam. And largely email delivery issues that happen are because your emails are landing in spam. And as you can see the numbers, one of the biggest reasons why email land is because unsubscribe feedback. So many people don't want to keep getting marketing emails, but many people, what they do is they don't actually give the unsubscribe option. So instead of being able to unsubscribe, they just spam you. They just put you in spam.
No, absolutely. And I know, and you're right. We all optimize that our email should not go in spam.
Yeah.
But we do not ask the question that why my emails are going in spam. So often than not, people will ask this question, and at times that, hey, my emails are going in spam. They should not go in spam. That's an outcome. But the question that you should be asking is that, by the way, why do my emails go in the spam in the first place? Okay, what I'm doing wrong. And that's where you start to ask the right questions so that you could course correct and make sure you solutionize it well in terms of content, technicality, so that your emails land in spam, right? And then only automation makes sense. A lot of times what I've seen, Niti, is in the education customers, everybody wants to do an automation and drip campaign, right? They have so much focus on the technology and the tools and the cadences, but the focus is not on the content of the email, right? It's probably often overlooked in that way, right? So and I think it's important also to address that fact that why emails are landing in spam, because that's where we start to address and understand the problem, right?
So actually, before we get into it, I thought I will ask the audience as to how many people have their emails that land in spam. I'm just launching the poll. I would love to know if you guys face the same problem when it comes to spam rate.
I don't know, probably 100% of people will probably say the same thing. But let's see what they say.
Yeah. I think I'll move ahead till the people can keep giving their answers. So there's many reasons why your emails land in spam. So this is like the top 4 reasons why somebody's email rate, spam rate is very high. So I think we can break it down as to why each individual point. So let's say the first point is didn't get permission from recipients. Now, I think we can all admit, as people who do marketing campaigns, we can also agree, Abhishek, that we have a tendency of buying data. In India, at least, a lot of us buy data to get leads, but we all seem to forget that even though we have bought data, we have actually not bought the permission to send them emails.
Right.
So that's a big issue when you actually kickstart your marketing campaigns to these people, because these people are like, okay, I never asked for this, and the first thing they will do is put you in spam.
Correct.
So,
and yeah, and it's funny. I mean, like, we are not advising that you do not buy data. What we are saying is that you are realistic about your motion and your outcome. A lot of times we see people buy raw data and it's okay, but you also need to be very cognizant that miracles are not going to happen with that, right? What will potentially happen that some of them will click, some of them will open, right? But it will never give you the same true ROI that an inbound lead who comes via intent or comes via one of your ads will give it to you. I think if people have this very clear cognizance of the fact, right, then that's the first step. And the second step, Niti, is that while they have this cognizance, they are making sure that all the things which might lead them to go to spam are being catered, right? So I think very, very important, from that perspective. So I think I can see, questions from Gladys that, is there a way to land the email in primary tab, not in promotion tab, and so on and so forth. So guys, we'll cover that. I think how we are trying to structure this webinar is that, first of all, we are trying to admit and address the problem. And once we identify that, we will also help you solutionize it, right? So these are the ones which are the core culprits. And I have seen so many emails that goes into spam. And yes, Gitanjali, you're right. I mean, words and phrases also contribute to it, but it's also the kind of content of the email that goes wrong to it. So probably we'll see how we can move from why is my spam rate high to what do we do to avoid it, Niti, right?
Yes. So we'll just cover this in a gist as to why your spam rates are high. So as we mentioned, one alternative could be to actually create a subscribers list who through opt-in methods from your website. So you create a list of subscribers, and that doesn't mean, like you mentioned, you'd stop buying leads. What you can do is, a lot of marketing people do is, even we sometimes do it, is send them sort of an introduction email saying that this introducing who we are and saying if you want to get more newsletters like these, informative content like this, why don't you subscribe to us? So invariably we are asking them to opt into that subscription. Another reason why email spam rates are high is your email is receiving negative engagement. I think one of the audiences mentioned the content as being a big issue. So this is where the element of content being a big issue comes into picture. That, okay, fine, everything is all right, working just fine for your email campaigns, but your content is just not working out. People are not liking the content you're putting out. So the moment it is not engaging enough for people, they will just put you in spam.
Right, right. And a lot of times, Niti, I mean, just for the audience, I'll say that Gmail is still forgiving. I think Outlook is not forgiving at all. Good part is that students' parents generally do not have an Outlook account. But if somebody is selling it on a higher education or upskilling programs, so that there will be working professionals who may have an Outlook account, right? They are very punishing of these kind of emails. You can be assured that in an Outlook world, your emails might not be even visible in spam. They'll go somewhere which might not be even visible, right? They just remove it from that inbox right away. Gmail is still a bit forgiving, and you can optimize for that, and you can hack it if you have to use that word to it. But Outlook and other clients are very unforgiving,
Yeah. Another reason why spam rates are high, like I mentioned in the previous section, is no unsubscribe link. Now, many of us might think that it's actually counterproductive as to, if I put an unsubscribe link option there, people will unsubscribe from my newsletters, they would not want to read it. But right. I look at it from this perspective. I would rather people unsubscribe from me than put me in spam. Right. Getting flagged in spam is worse than being unsubscribed to. We can always request them to subscribe back.
And sometimes, Niti, there is a subscribe link, but it does not work.
Yeah.
So people put so much focus on the content and the hyperlinks, but they just put a mail merge on the unsubscribe. Probably they not pick a opt-out list for them, and which probably brings us to the last point of misleading subject line. And I think we'll cover that by giving you some good and bad examples as we move ahead. So I think, Niti, that's a very good time to quickly move ahead and look at how can we avoid this. Now we have identified the problem,
Of course, yes. So what can I do to ensure that my email marketing is effective?
That's what everybody's asking on the chat, right? So let's probably unveil and tell them, So I'll go first, Niti, and probably cover the kind of and guys on the audience, probably you all know this, but what we are trying to tell you is that these do not work in isolation. You have to do each and everything, right? Because there is still, after doing all these things, there is no guarantee that your email will land in spam. There's no guarantee, but there's a good probability that it may not, right? So the first and clear aspect is, that avoid spam trigger keywords in your subject line, and I would say to all of you after this webinar, do an interesting thought experiment. Go to your Gmail inboxes, go to your spam, and read the emails that come to you. You will see a commonality: offer, discount, unsolicited advice, right? Some kind of waivers, freebies, all go by default in spam. So that's a very plain Jane vanilla thing. And often than not, they go in spam, but we also end up doing it and we do not optimize for it. So that's the most important thing. I have also seen huge, long text heavy emails. Some people also put inline images, which are very heavily penalized. So that's another aspect that you should probably vary. I mean, brevity is quality. Be brief, be succinct is what people like to read, because we live in a attention deficit world where people do not want to read so many emails on a long email. So that's, I think, one of the other things. Third, very important, I think the first and third are linked to each other, that your campaign needs to have a goal and the content needs to be optimized for that. So for example, if you are doing a webinar and you're sending an email, that email needs to have the venue, details, how to link, how to register, how to pay. That needs to be very neatly laid out. It should not be that there is an inline image which is not even clickable and I cannot do anything about it. It is bound to go in spam, right? So the basic kind of cadence is based on what kind of campaigns you're optimizing for. And again, a very important bit, Niti, is personalization. Now we all know about mail merge, that if you have an audience or a list, then using mail merge you can send it to 100 or 200 odd people and will take their first name and last name, right? Sometimes I ended up receiving an email when I registered, which was titled, Dear Niti, not Dear Abhishek. So imagine I receiving an email from somebody where the first name is not my name in the first place. So even if it's not spam, the first thing I will do is delete or mark it as spam.
Yeah.
Right? So do you even test out your emails that they are coming right? And sometimes your intention and campaign must be is all optimized, but maybe your mail merge gets screwed up and you send around 100, 200 mails to people where a mail merge is probably all going haywire. And the kid
Yeah.
and the parent will not trust you, that it looks like something fishy. Why would I want to do that? And especially when it comes to payment and transaction mails, that needs to be very well crafted out. So I think these are some of the very content type, I would say, Niti, and campaign oriented things that I have seen so many people make mistakes on.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think? I mean,
so you're absolutely right, actually. And like you mentioned, content, yes, your content needs to be really engaging and something that people like to read. But there are some, you could say, beautification elements that you have to keep in mind when you're actually sending out email campaigns to folks. So even as basic step as ensuring that your lead list, your current statuses of your lead list is up to speed, so that for sure that when I'm sending an email to Niti, it goes to Niti, not to Abhishek.
Correct. No, of course. But I think these are the ones, Niti, people know. I mean, I would really love to jump on some
technical aspect to it.
That's where people know all the kind of things, but then they miss. So guys, this is the technical part, and Niti, I'll quickly take few ones, then probably you can jump in, right? A lot of times we receive emails, right? And we have not done sender authentication, right? And I'll give you a very simple case of what that it means. It means that it tells the recipient that they are receiving the emails specifically from the organization and not from somebody faking that organization. So a lot of mail providers, transactional mail providers like MailChimp, SendGrid, and all those, they have a very core aspect where they authenticate your domain so that the trust of the domain is maintained. And I see a lot of times, right, people kind of miss this. So a lot of times people optimize for cost. I mean, 3 paisa, 4 paisa, 5 paisa. I, for the lack of better word, I'm going to say to all of in the audience, please don't do that. Please don't do that. Maybe your cost of acquisition might increase by 10%, 50%. That's okay. But the penalty to optimize for that cost is that you will never reach your audience. And even if you're reaching your audience, they are going to blacklist you, or probably they are going to spam you. That has more deficit to your brand than optimizing for the cost of the email that you're sending. Don't do that, right? Which brings me to, the aspect of sticking to a reputable email service provider. I mean, there are great email service providers in the world, like, in US, you have Twilio, you have SendGrid. Now, SendGrid is a part of Twilio. In India, you have Gupshup and Netcore and so on and so forth. Go with quality providers. Don't optimize for local cost players and things, because they might not be able to provide you this world-class aspects where a lot of things are already taken care of. And things like SPF records and DKIM will not go into technicality, but think of it like these are the right keys and these are the right kind of context that you need not worry about. Your reputable email service provider will take care of it. That this means that they are coming from the right keys, right authentication mechanisms. Your IP is white listed and your dedicated IP. So if you are sending a lot of lakhs of emails and crores of emails at times, and a lot of brands do that, right? It's very pertinent you invest in having a dedicated IP from an email service provider. Now it's costly, right? But it needs to be done, because if you don't do that, these are the basic probabilistic things that you should at least do. These are hygiene, right? That you could probably go and do that. Also, last but not least, I'll say that sometimes when you send a lot of raw data and bulk emails, some of the domains start to have a bad reputation. They are not warmed up properly and they get kind of blacklisted, which means that you have to start from the scratch. And this also happens when, if you send 100 odd emails and around 80 or 90 start to put you in spam, there is a real risk that your entire domain will eventually get blacklisted by DMARC, which DMARC is the official body that controls the regulations for these kind of digital communications. So these are the below the iceberg things which are not visible to the marketer. But if they are not visible, does not mean that they are not working. They are working in full gusto, and you should be very much careful whenever you are sending that bought data bulk email with a service provider that you're working for 10 years, that you think that probably it might not harm me, it might harm you more, that it might give you clicks. So Niti, however bland and blunt it sounds, this is the biggest truth, to follow these basic technical protocols and get your email cadences in order.
Yeah, I completely agree. And like you mentioned, like people might not want to put in a lot of money and might consider that it's extremely expensive. I think one way to look at it is you're actually investing in a good quality technical background for your email campaigns, so that later on you don't face more expensive issues. Now that we have actually looked at typical things that you should keep in mind when it comes to email campaigns, I think we can also talk about data that you should look into. Now, you're running a lot of email campaigns. How do you ensure that your email campaigns are working out for you? Because that is also another key that you can ensure that whether your emails are landing in spam or not.
So Niti, before you start, let me tell you a joke. I think marketers track too many matrices.
Yes,
okay.
That is true.
It's like, if I have a dashboard filled with number, the better marketer I am, and I'm doing a great job. I think it's very simple. Knowing what matters to me and only tracking few things is something that we have internally learned as B2B marketers. And I think that even more applies to B2C marketing, because there is so much unsolicited advice out there that there are 50 metrics you should track. I mean, my emails are not going in inbox and I'm tracking 50 metrics. So it's like, I think, very pertinent, and that you walk through the audience that what really matters and what's the benchmark around that. Yeah.
Yes. I completely agree with you, Abhishek. Like, we track so much data, but actually the key should be, we should be tracking data that is insightful, not just for the sake of tracking data. Even for email marketing, if you search email marketing data that I need to track, you'll like find 50 to 60 blogs, even including HubSpot, telling you should track this rate, you should track that rate. They're good to have information. I'm not saying they're not completely bad, but largely these three are key metrics that you need to keep an eye on. I think I'll walk you through each one of them. One of them is open rates. Open rates, just to give you an example, is how many people have actually opened your emails out of the emails that you have delivered. So if I've sent an email campaign to 1,000 people, out of that, let's say 800 have been delivered, and only 40 to 50 people have opened. So your open rates will be the comparison between the 40 people who have the emails they have opened out of the 800 who have delivered. Now, one thing I should probably make a point before I get into other metrics as to track is, each industry has different benchmarks when it comes to the open rates, click rates, bounce rates. So for our industry, for the education industry, the benchmark is 25%. Your open rate should be 25% and above. That's a good open rate to have.
Sure.
Now, moving on to the click-through rates, another important metric to have is click-through rate. Now, when it comes to email marketing, we have a tendency to have a CTA, you could say a call to action at the bottom of the email that usually redirects someone to a specific link, let's say a website, or even how we redirected people for our webinar to a registration link. So how do you know if people are actually going to that link? So you get to know is through the click-through rates. Click-through rates is basically the number of people who have actually clicked on the link out of the people who have opened the link. And for education industry, the benchmark is 2.9%. 2.9% is a very good good click-through rate to have. And finally, bounce rate. Now, bounce rate is an important metric to track because it relates to your spam rates also. If your bounce rate is very high, your spam rates are definitely going to be high. It's basically the percentage of emails that have not been delivered out of the number of people who have been delivered the emails. and your bounce rate should not go beyond 0.5%.
Right. I think, Niti, it's also very interesting as you talk about these things to relate it practically with real world. So if your open rates are bad, that means that your content and your, maybe even your list that you're doing it are screwed, are probably broken there. So you need to fix your content, copy your list that you're sending to. I think if your click through and even your subject line is not also not very interesting or probably misleading at times in this case. I think if you come to click through rate, I think you have done a good job in your content, in your copy, but that email is not intentful meant for that particular audience. He does not find it interesting enough to click on some of the things, because basically after reading, I should be intentful enough to go ahead and do some call to action. So it's not working for me. And from the bounce, I think you just got a bad list of data which are all wrong and everything, right? So stop purchasing from that vendor, or stop doing that in the first place, and probably spend more money in Google PPC, or in your inbound or digital marketing strategy. I would like to because you see what happens, Niti, is that while all these things get broken, your domain authority gets for a toss, and that is something like an irreparable damage to your brand. And I have seen that happening with too many brands, where some low-level marketer is just sending bulk emails from a tool which is not meant to do that.
Yeah. And it's extremely expensive also. Even if it is repairable, it's extremely expensive. So keep that in mind when you launch a next email campaign.
Yeah.
So moving on to how good an email copy should be. I think, Abhishek, you have a couple of examples of a good and a bad email copy.
Yeah, so I think, guys, we want this webinar to be also show and tell. So we are just telling you, right? But we thought that we will create a really bad email copy, and we really create a decent and good email copy and show you so that you can really viscerally visualize it, that what do you see, and a lot of numbers that we're sharing with you guys, right? Take it with a pinch of salt. It's not based on some research that we have done for the past 20 years. It's based on our analysis of probably emails that education institutes send from our platform, which are in double-digit crores today. So it's our own analysis and research that we have done, and we have come. So it might be 10% here or there, but it's probably on an average, it hits the ball in the right park, right? So, Niti, shall we show some good email and bad email copies? Okay.
Yes. Guys, I'll let you share the screen.
Yeah, take it with a pinch of salt. It might sound funny at times, but think about all the emails that you might have spent and what mistakes are you doing, right?
So we try to make it as good as possible and as worse as possible.
Yeah. So, okay. So let me quickly talk about a couple of ones, right? So let's talk about the bad first. Okay. So the subject line leads: free offer, join our mega Canada online education fair to top notch universities. Now, let's look at the first problem. The problem is that this is a very long subject line. So when it comes on my Gmail, it might not appear correctly. What will only appear are probably free offer, join at our mega. That's about it. It will not appear correctly. Now, free offer is often misleading, right? But then, okay, so let's start with that. Now, this content is followed by an inline image, which is not optimized. So this image is probably big, auto width is not optimized. It looks horizontal. It has not been optimized. Okay. So A. Now, as we go ahead, right? So I'm reading this email. Okay, finally imagine this email lands in inbox, and I read, interesting. I'm reading it. But there is a content called webinar charges extra at 500 for students applying this fall. This is a very good example of a email that subject line talks about something else, but the content probably is counterintuitive to what is being said there, right? And I'm not saying we all do that. Sometimes we unconsciously end up doing that, and you will be very surprised that Google's engine and Gmail's engine is absolutely smart, that looks at these kind of things. Another thing that you will really see is that there are too many hyperlinks and overlinks here at the start, and everything is taking me away. I mean, even the phone number is hyperlinked, and as we go, it's giving me a Zoom meeting link to register, right? The first step would be that you send me and you ask me to register. they are directly asking me to join. That means that they're assuming that I have given the permission for attending this webinar. Now that is very, that's like, thinking about is that, you are directly asking the person to come to you, even without asking the person that he is interested on coming to you or not and talking to you, right? So that's misleading. And also the problem is that it's asking to save our seat, but it's also giving us an option to just attend the webinar. So either you ask the permission first or you join, right? Join, that you're going in spam anyways, or either you ask, and from here you take me to a registration page on Zoom or a registration page and take me there. And by the way, this marketer forgot to add the footer and the unsubscribe link, by the way, right? And a lot of times we end up doing that. And by the way, also one of the things that I would say that probably this image could have been my top image, and this image is basically fluff and noise. It should have been not been there. A lot of times we also see, Niti, that this is the only image that is throughout the mail, which is clickable in this different avatar. So just one inline image without content and text, right? And again, in this case, it's been optimized for mobile and things like that. But let's look at how it looks in mobile. So the first fold is just an image. It does not make any sense, actually. It's just few of the kids from globalized countries sitting and smiling, right? What does it mean, right? I don't even know the context. The context starts from here. So scroll is a very important criteria for your attention, and it should be optimized. Probably the email should have been overneath this criteria itself, here itself. It should be over. I could read the whole thing in one thing, right? Not even talking about the font and everything, probably that also needs to be optimized. But I mean, this is a, this looks like a decent email, but it's a poor example of an email copy drafted, right?
Yes.
I mean, anything Niti you care to mention here, from your side?
But I think you covered it actually. Like the first thing I noticed was the unnecessary amount of links. But if I received an email like this, I would be like, what link am I supposed to click first?
Yeah.
Is it this link? Is it that link? Which link am I supposed to go first? So yes, ideally, if you want people to go to a specific link or a specific page, you should make them focus towards that one link. So avoid adding too many links in your, or actually just put one link, one call to action in your email.
Absolutely. And also, Niti, the point is, however simple it sounds, right? What is the intent of this email? Do you want me to know about this event? A, do you want me to know and register for this event? C, do you want me to directly attend that event? So attending that event will be the third email that goes to you after you have known about it and then you have registered for it. Then I'll be sending you the link. A lot of people who attended a webinar today, they registered and then they got the link, right?
Yes.
Here the guy has directly sent the link, right? You come and attend. Why would I do that? And smart people would not like it, that you have not taken my permission, right? In this case. So I think that's a very good example of a bad copy email, but I think let's not demotivate our audience. Let's also talk about quickly a decent, good email copy, right? And you will see the difference right away here itself. I think the first difference is that it's personalized.
Yeah.
I'm saying that, hello, Abhishek, your counseling session is confirmed. It's very simple. It's like a transactional intent-based mail, right? It has a contextual image of a counseling session, which is probably happening and things like that. And it's basically that's over. It's done, right? It's like, think about an email that you receive after you book an appointment with Practo, or you book an Airbnb, or you have done some transactional activities and things like that. Your promotional emails also can be like that, by the way, right? You need not put all fluff and jazz into it. Very simple. Asking, hello, thank you for time or our call. It was pleasure talking to you today. As discussing, your mail merge is there. Contact us. It has a footer with, again, mail merge. There's mail merge. There are links, and wow, there's a link to unsubscribe, which goes to a proper link of unsubscription right into it. And let's quickly look at how it is look in mobile. I can read it probably in one fold. I have read my email. Okay, great. I know the email. The content is visible to me. If I want to do other activities, probably I can scroll. So in two folds, this email content is over even on a mobile screen, right? So nothing rocket science, guys. Very basic stuff. But go and question the fact that, does your promotional email look like a transactional email? Probably they should. It's the new way of doing email marketing. And anything over to you. I mean, you want to add anything to it?
Yeah, but one thing I should probably point out, like you mentioned in the previous email also, is mobile optimization. Nowadays, like the younger generation, like from millennials to Gen Zs, we all use. In fact, everybody uses mobile to have any kind of interaction with people. In fact, you'll notice that Instagram as a social media platform has very limited uses on a web app. It is a purely mobile based app, so mobile optimization is very important nowadays, even when it comes to email campaigns. Is it easy to read on your phone?
Mhm.
The first thing, and how many times am I supposed to scroll to actually get to the end of the agenda?
Correct. And it could be a simple adjustment, Niti. I mean, like the font size was 22. Maybe the font size could be a smaller font size, and it could be just a simple adjustment here. Now, this is very good. I mean, this like it's a small adjustment, but it goes a long way. It's like, was there love and care involved in drafting that email content or not, right? And some of the
Yes.
people will think about it, maybe, sending more emails to more people makes more sense than optimizing for the content, the brevity. I mean, guess what? I mean, you are again going in spam, right? In this case, at least in this, you have a higher probability of saying few things in few words and landing in probably inbox or maybe in promotions, right?
And as you mentioned, one more thing I think I should point out is it's not about the size of the content either, the content, not the font size. Short emails work really well, but long emails can also work. The key here is how engaging the content is. If the content is not engaging enough, then your long form content is not going to work. Then I would recommend sticking to short form content. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It just
Yeah.
you have to be really good at it, basically.
Right, right. So Niti, shall we take some of the questions right now, or what do you think? I mean, there are a lot of questions, or should we continue?
I think we have just probably one more section left, and we can probably get to dive right into the Q&A.
Got it.
Um,
Go ahead.
yes,
So
I'll
guys,
go ahead
please,
and
please posting your questions. We will try to answer most of your question. I can see some very interesting questions, so we will try to answer them. And at the
yeah.
at the very end of the call. Yeah, Niti, go ahead.
So now we have talked about creating a good email copy. We have all the ingredients ready for our broth. But one key element that we should always mention is utilizing automation to our benefit. It doesn't matter if you have all the ingredients ready for your email campaign. If it's not doing on-time engagement, your campaign is useless. So one best example probably to explain how automation can help you is with an email campaign, with just an email campaign, आपको चलना आ रहा है. But with automation, आपको Lamborghini चला रहे हो. So automation will basically help you streamline your entire marketing process in a seamless manner, and manual processes will reduce. One big help is manual processes will reduce. You just have to sit on one day, set up all your email campaigns, and it will just run in your back in the background when you're working on something else. And the other big aspect is largely email campaigns. The biggest reason why you do email campaigns is that you keep your leads engaged. You want them to be engaged. You want them to feel that we're adding value to them, and you need to then keep them engaged on a regular intervals. It's a little difficult when you're trying to do it with manual processes. It becomes easier when you're using automation, so that you can run drip campaigns, something like this. It's a very basic example of a drip campaign. Like, okay, you have set up multiple touch points with a specific person, and based on how they engage with your email, if they have opened their email, okay, you have reached your goal. But if they have not opened their email, maybe you send them a follow-up email saying, hey, we have something interesting for you. I think we can probably showcase this in a better way, Abhishek. Do you want to showcase it on a platform?
Yep. So yeah, I'll do that. But now let me also burst some of the myths here, Niti, for the people, right? So
Yeah.
let me quickly share my screen.
Yes.
So a lot of times when we talk about automation, and automation is the example, by the way, you should only move to automation when you have taken care of some of the hygiene and some of the content that you call it. So if you, my advice to all the marketers or the admission team members who are a part of this audience is that, first of all, go and look at each and every copy of your email. Look at your sender authentication, look at your domain authority, work with a good CRM provider or an email provider. Like at Extra Edge case, we work with one of the best in the world called SendGrid, which is a Twilio company. They are best in class. There are others also. You can work with Netcore and Gupshup, but then work with a great provider who helps you optimize that. So that's the first thing. Moving on to the part of automation, a lot of times I hear marketers, and it's not that automation is being done in the retail or in the real estate or in the e-commerce world for a long period of time, right? So what happens, Niti, is that a lot of marketers want to do something like this, right? They want to build something like this, that I will drag, drop, build this workflow and things like that, right? Now try to understand the fact that this looks very beautiful, right, and very amazing, but when you start to build it, it looks complicated for you. It's very good when you are running an e-commerce business or you're running a real estate or retail business where you're selling around 100 probably products every day. But in education, which is more of a kind of product retail sales business, right, it's not that you will be sending a crore email in every day like probably an e-commerce company might do, right? So this kind of complicated cadence looks very good in a product demo, but the guy who's going to implement it at the end of the day faces a lot of problem doing it, and I've seen that, right? So again, not trying to, it needs to be very simple, and and not trying to beat our own drum, but we have tried to create it very simple, and I'll show you, Niti, right, what we could do. So it's like very simple cadences that I will do few things, and then some things should happen. For example, if the prospect is filling an application form and they are coming from Delhi and their status is they will make a campus visit. It's very simple, right? That guy has applied by filling an application form. He's from Delhi and he's going to visit my campus. So Niti, what would you send him next? Would you not send him the address? Would you not send him probably a reminder before his campus visit that, hey buddy, your appointment was booked. You might have forgotten because of some things. Please remember it. And then I would also want to send him an email to his mother and father, because they might be also coming to the campus and accompanying him, right? Very simple playbook, right? It can be built very, very clearly. So, I can say that, okay, one email should go immediately to by the way, to the father also and mother also, because we have multiple email address. It might land in spam in one, but this other guy might have received my email once. So in this case, it might land in inbox because there is always a familiarity with that particular brand. And then I put, it should go in 8 hours, 1 day. And on the 11th day, when he's going to make a visit, I will probably put a address and send it to him, right? And also what I would want to say that if this guy would have also opened the email when he's going to visit me a couple of days back, I might also say that if this was clicked, then maybe I will also go ahead and send a small WhatsApp message in this case to fill the form. So I would say that maybe there's a link. I will also send a link along with that, probably to the father, mother also. Right. So now, it's very simple. It's like if and else how we are talking to each other, rather than complicated drag, drop, the drag is missing, the mouse is missing, and things like that, right? It needs to be a very simple cadence, which anybody who understands a bit of logic can go ahead and execute it. Now, there are also other products who do that, but we have tried to keep it very, very simple, that how it could be done. And then you build kind of flows over it. And what I've found in education marketing, Niti, that you need not overcomplicate it. It's very simple actually, because the admission cycle is very predictable. It's not unpredictable. There's a deadline, there's a batch ending date, there's a time to submit, and your batch closes and your academic cycle starts, right? So it's very predictable, and these motions can be automated based on that at any given point in time. So 2 final comments, Niti. Keep it simple.
Yes.
Right. And keep it practically contextual to the campaign that you're doing it. So in this case, this guy is already coming to my campus. I need to send him 3-4 messages so that his visit prior to that is meaningful, and he comes there and he does what he's supposed to do. He finally fills the form, pays the fees, and takes admission. Right? And involving other stakeholders who are in this case his parents, or maybe a ward or a guardian, and I need to have their email addresses so that I'm also sending to them. That's like common sense being applied back to the automation. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's from my end, Niti. Over to you.
I mean, it's amazing actually what you can do with automation if you understand exactly what you should do. Um, so now we have talked about automation. I think we are almost winding up. Let's probably summarize what we have learned today. We have talked about certain myths that we all think about email marketing. We have talked about how you can avoid spam rates. We have also talked about how a good email should look like. And finally, we have discussed and tried to understand how you can utilize automation to your advantage. I think, Abhishek, we can move on to the Q&A. We have quite a few questions.
Yeah. And guys, it's like email is such a simple topic, but such a huge and vast topic, right? What we have tried to do is that we have tried to optimize for identifying the common mistakes and common problems. We have also tried to share with you how to solutionize it and try to do more of a show and tell. And that has been our intent. And we are also getting better at it, right? So I think let's quickly go and take some questions. And there are some very interesting questions.
While we are doing that, I'm actually launching a poll. I would really love to know how you like this session, and we'll continue the Q&A session side by side.
Yeah, so I'll start picking up some questions, Niti, and
Yes.
while I'm taking that, so I think one question is, how can I create some great opt-in campaigns to increase my subscriber base? I think that is the best way to create an opt-in campaign is to identify what is that aha moment for the user on your website or landing page. For example, there are a lot of tools like Opt-in Monster and which or even HubSpot allows you to do that. For example, if a visitor came to your website and he is bouncing after probably 30 seconds, then you could have an exit intent there. So that's a very good moment where you could give him an ebook, or you could give him a good newsletter or something that he can take away with him or her. So that's a very good way of thinking about it, right? Another very good opt-in is that when somebody completes some kind of transaction, he leaves an email for you, then probably you can give him some freebies that with this email, you should not wait for a demo or a thing. We are already giving you a video or a demo for a free lecture that goes in your inbox along with verification email that you can consume right away. So I would say that your opt-in campaign should be optimized to give and to share first. Add value to your customer or a visitor first, because you have already taken their contacts details from you. So they have given something to you. Offer them something which is 100x better than the something that you want from them, that they buy the course or program. Give them something which is very meaningful for them. That would really make sure that you focus on content and value for your prospect before they become your customer, according to me, right? Moving on to it, I think Gitanjali has a question. Can you use spam trigger word in your email body content in case there is promotion about a giveaway? Or does it also? I think yes, Gitanjali, it's a very basic bread and butter question that avoid spam triggered keywords. There is a very good HubSpot article, which after this webinar, we will share, where HubSpot has identified more than probably around a lot of other keywords that you should always keep in mind and not use in subject line. So we will be more than happy to share that with you. But yes, it contributes a hell lot. And that's a basic thing that you can keep practice on to avoid these keywords on the subject line as well as the content of that email in this case. So yes, it has
I can actually add on to that. That same article has like a huge exhaustive list. One thing that you can probably keep in mind is you can use them, but your content then should also back up that specific spam keyword. For example, if you say free webinar, and your internal content doesn't actually say that it's a free webinar, then definitely you will land on spam. So use it judicially and use it in a smart way.
Correct. Absolutely. Another question is that we are using our school domain ID to send emails. How do we authenticate it? So basically, any good email service provider like SendGrid has an option to authenticate your domain using DNS records. So without going into details of it, there is a text record that you can enter on SendGrid, which will match with your DNS record of your domain. And as the match happens, the marriage happens, you will be sender authenticated. A good way of checking it is that anytime you receive an email, click on the recipient to, and you'll see a small icon of a lock with authentication, and there it will be that where the email is coming from. So it needs to come from your domain and not from the service provider. So it should not be sendgrid.net. It should be your institutename.com or .org. That's when you have authenticated it. So any good email service provider does that. Even we at ExtraEdge heavily rely on these service providers, and we help you to authenticate your domains. Moving on, what is Abusix mail intelligence domain blacklist? So Amol, basically it's a website that allows you to enter your domain and see whether there has been a complaint or not, or whether it's blacklisted or not. There are many of like that where you go and you can enter a domain and check. I will highly advise that once a while, after you have sent a barrage of raw data bulk emails, please go and check that has the SIN being reprimanded or not. So I would highly advise you that you go ahead and do that. Right? Can you list down the email service providers just talked about? Again, there are many of them. We rely heavily on, ExtraEdge is integrated heavily with SendGrid. Also, I think Gupshup and Netcore are really like powerful players in this area. The idea is that work with somebody who's very reputed, who have mastered this art over a period of time with changes in policies or not. What are the free sources to run email campaign? Amol, unfortunately, don't do that. Okay. Don't go for free sources to run email campaigns. It's the old line from Joker, right? If you're good at something, don't do it for free. So it's like email service providers, you please pay money to them. They do a good job, because if you don't pay money to them, it causes you more harm than it causes you cost optimization there. Moving on to it, I think there's a very the main point is Gmail filters are getting too strict, that they are too good in content filtration. Even if we are using simple text, they also end up landing in spam. So what do we do? How much is the role of a technical partner used for delivering the email campaign? So Aditya, very pertinent and good question. I think one of the points that you miss here is that if that particular lead or contact is acquired via your own opt-in and via your own campaigns, then Google remembers it. And I'll give you a lot of examples that generally a lot of leads that come from Google AdWords, or they come from any other channels, they might be a part of Google's GDN network, or what we call global distribution network or ad network. So Google can keep a trail of that email and can link that email ID with your opt-in CRM database and things like that. So they can do all kinds of connecting the dots. So one of the reasons that your email might yet be landing in spam even if the content is that you have not acquired that email or that contact via some legitimate means of inbound marketing. Now, this is just one way. There can be many other reasons why your email is landing in spam. Probably that guy is pushing you in spam. It might be the case. Nobody can stop you from that. But I think making sure that you acquire it is very, very important. So another question, which is a very interesting question, is do text-only mailers work better than image-based emailers in the terms of the chances to land in the primary folder and also in terms of CTR? I think, Niti, you would like to take this one.
So honestly, it depends. Initially, I would recommend doing, if you're just starting out with email campaigns, I would recommend doing an A/B testing. It depends on what works out for your audiences. There's no hard and fast rule that you shouldn't be putting images. You should, in fact, in some of our email campaigns, I've also added use GIFs, because GIFs was trending in for the past couple of months. So it depends on how personalized that image is, how relevant to the context of the content it is, and whether it's mobile optimized or not. So it purely depends on finally how your audiences are reacting to the content.
Correct. I think only use image when without image your kind of objective will not be achieved. I think that will be my thing of it. And try to avoid inline images, because they are heavily penalized by email providers. And you would see that when you receive an email, it asks you to have an option called display pictures at the top of the Gmail. It does not appear automatically. So so maybe avoid. I think there's another good question on what's the best time to send to and send to email. Again, there are so much science around it. Whoever asked this question, what we have found is that there are some days which are really good, and there are some time hours which are really, really good, right? And I would like Niti to answer that question, because I think, and don't take our word for it as like absolute truth. There are some or the other, but data shows that these are the days and times which are really good to send emails. Yeah, Niti, over to you.
So, like I mentioned, there's no hard and fast rule when it comes to, because again, it depends on the industry you're in. What are the typical working hours for a specific industry? So for us, we have seen many people say actually Monday mornings you should be sending emails, but at the same time, some people say keep Monday mornings are the time where everybody is it's the first day of the week, so everybody is in the mode of okay, what is my agenda for the week? What should I be getting done? So maybe they may not be interested in reading up a marketing newsletter at that point of day. So in fact, a couple of days that we try out is Tuesdays. Thursdays are very good. Try to avoid sending emails at a complete weekend, because nobody's in the mood to make a decision at that time. Also, some say that afternoon times are a good time. Because that is the time when it's the lunch time where people are just interested in scrolling through social media or looking up at just random things. So maybe they might open up your email campaigns better. But important messages, it's better to set early in the morning. So we try to push out email campaigns at around 9:30, because we have found out that 9:30 is a good time for us to send
Right.
email campaigns. Again, you will have to do a little bit of experimentation initially to find out where you're getting the best possible engagement, and then utilize that for your future campaigns.
Right. I think for a generic promotional email, I agree with you, Niti. Tuesdays and Thursdays in the first half are good times relatively as compared to other. But then if your content is not optimized, it's more promotional in nature, then even if sending any day of the week, it does not make sense, right? It will land in spam. So, but then if you need to have a verdict on it, then I think Tuesdays and Thursdays are really good. Early morning before, in the first half are really good. Avoid sending it during holiday seasons and weekends. These retail mails that goes to students and parents, I think it's a misnomer that they will read it. I think people have less time, they enjoy on the weekend, they will not read it, and they will get piled up by more correct emails that will come on the top of the inbox. So utilize Tuesdays and Thursdays as much you can to prioritize it.
Yes.
Just looking at some of the questions, in education, we majorly have purchase data during admission season. I think Aditya, you are correct. You are right. I would say that, do some A/B testing on it. Maybe send a blog or send an article or a success story or a case study of your university or institute with this bulk data email. Make it more informative or FYI, not FYA. What will happen due to that is that people who are really interested, right, would end up opt-in, read your blog or go to your website or browse through that content and probably submit their email ID, or they will open and click. Separate that cohort out. So probably out of your 50,000, there are only 500 people who have done that, or 200 people who have done that. Then use those 200 people to send very specific, personalized, CTA based emails and actions to it. I know that raw data or data will always be there. It will not go away. Neither we are recommending that, but how to utilize the data and what content should be sending. The content should be more prescriptive and not directive in nature. This is my suggestion to you. But again, it's a difficult question. We also don't have a direct answer to it, but there's some prescriptions that we could probably think about and tell you.
I think I can add on to that is what we have experienced is initially for engagement purposes, newsletters work out really well. Like you mentioned, sending out blogs, sending out ebooks if you're creating ebooks, even depending on like infographics, you can send out a lot of things. So when it comes to engagement, based on how many times a person has opened the rate, again, how interested a person is looking at it, then you can probably go towards directive rather than restrictive.
Correct. So there is one question is there a way to make sure that your emails land in promotions and instead of promotions land in inbox? I think there's a lot of debate and questions around that, but there's no definite answer to it. I think the simple answer is that if your email sounds like a promotion, it will go in promotion. Right?
Yeah.
And for example, if you are sending an email after the guy has filled an application form reminding him that he should complete his application form, high chances it will go in inbox and not in promotion. But if you are speaking to a prospect where you're saying that the last deadline is 15th of October and you need to start filling your application form, it looks like a promotional type. It will might go in promotion. So it depends on the context and the funnel journey of the prospect where they are, and it will go to it.
Adding on to that, adding on to that is one experience that I've seen is if you're using one specific email to run all your marketing campaigns, depending on how people are engaging with your content, for example, if they're putting you on spam or marking it as promotion, your email campaign will most likely land in promotions, even if it is a normal direct email sent. So maybe you keep a designated email just for promotional content instead of using your own ID for that.
Right. Also, a very simple hack, Niti, is that for all the marketers here, that when you send your emails and you also make a call and talk to the prospects, right? Your admission executives and admission counselors can also very sheepishly suggest them that, hey, look, you might have got an email from you. It must have gone in spam. Can you go and mark it unspam so that you receive the next email from me? I think it's a sometimes simple things are often not said and not action to it. Imagine that you're calling probably 20% of people you're sending emails, and you are also telling them that, if you are interested in my brand, can you go and look at the spam? It might have gone in spam, mark unspam. That is a sure guarantee that your next email will land in inbox. So at least do these small things, from a counseling cadence perspective, mind to it. I think there's a very good question that how do I write a great call to action? I think a great call to action should be optimized for value of your recipient and not for you. So for example, instead of sending them register now, the call to action could be that, start learning, or and learn more. And instead of saying that buy now, it could be that, make the right choice. So you know what I'm trying to say, right? So think of the nomenclature and verbiage from the perspective of who the guy is clicking, not what you want to say, if you know what I mean, right? So that's a very good way of of looking at it. So if you look at the poll right now, it says that type answer. It does not say that, that just answer. So it's asking me from my perspective that I'll type the answer. That's a call to action on the button right now on the polls. So think of your CTA from a perspective of your buyer, and based on what exactly he's going to do after reading that content. Niti, I think we have overshot our time. I think we can keep on speaking about it. I think I'll take one more question here. So earlier, my email campaign gets 20% and above open rate. By now, it's 1 to 2% only for the same campaign. What I'm doing wrong? So Amol, a lot of things we discussed, you may or may not be doing wrong. So the basics would be go to check the technical aspects of it quickly. Maybe your domain needs to be warmed up again, or you probably need to have another domain, or the content part of it, or going through it, or maybe your database is not cleaned up a bit and things like that. I would also suggest one more thing, Amol, here is that you should experiment with multiple domains. So for example, if you have an organization called ABC, and you have an abc.org, probably you may go ahead and buy abc.in. You may go ahead and buy abc.co or abc.net, and if you can potentially do that, right? And try sending emails with different domain names. Now, that's also a very good practical way of having multiple domain names, so that one domain name does not get overburdened by the bulk of the emails that you're sending. We have done that at our end, and we have seen success with that. Right. Great. I think the last one is that changing subject lines when you are sending multiple emails help. Of course, yes. Please definitely experiment with subject lines. Put subject lines from a perspective of CTAs. It should be what the guy wants to read, not what you want to tell him, right? So that's a good way of thinking about it. One of the ways of thinking about good subject line is that think about, if you were to receive this email, what would be the subject line of that email, rather than you sending that email out. And that's a very good way of looking at it, right? Yeah. So, okay, I think there's a question from Gaurav. I think that will be a last question, Niti.
Yeah.
So many other touch points available to deliver the value-driven content. What makes email worth investing resources in? Because major email challenges are CTR low, open rates and low, spam rates are high. once unsubscribed, we cannot reach the audience again. So Gaurav, what you're right, first of all, but what all things you are saying are outcomes of a bad campaign, or they are outcomes of a list that is not acquired by opt-in, but probably by brute force, right? uh, I think looking at why these things are happening and correcting your list building, your email copy, your content, and your campaign is the first and important and boring thing that probably you may want to do and go ahead to it. uh, I think when somebody unsubscribes you, it's a big sigh of relief, Gaurav, because now you're not wasting your time trying to convince somebody to buy your product, because you don't want everybody to become your customer, right? You just want the few people who are interested to buy your product. So if somebody unsubscribes, as Niti said, I always take it as a sign of victory, because then I'm not worried about that guy now. He's out of my bucket, and I'm focusing on the other guys who clicked and opened. So again, a very not a very direct answer to your important question, but that these are my 2 cents here.
Adding on to that, one thing quite a few marketing folks do is, let's say somebody is unsubscribed from the list. You can reach out to them after a small gap. Probably they have unsubscribed from your list because you have been sending too many emails to them. You can pause and request, probably send an invitation saying we are sending out quite interesting, informative content to folks. If you would like to subscribe back, in fact, there are a lot of resubscribers who come back to email campaigns. So you can try that out also.
Great. So I think thank you very much, guys. I think we tried our best to talk about the very simple basic things, often kind of overlooked. At the same time, some technical aspects, rather than going deeper into technical aspects. We will come up with more such webinars to talk about some very specific engagement tools for admission marketers. That's the purpose, and that's our metric for doing these webinars. We will send out the deck to you as well as presentation and the recording, so that you could consume it later on. And thank you, Niti, for sharing the words of wisdom from your end, and look forward to having if not all of you, but some of you in our next webinars.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Abhishek, for letting me be part of this.
Yeah, thank you, guys, and look forward to seeing you on our next webinar.